it's an age-old question. This is not a new question, you know, and I think it depends on the style of writing, number one. Are you writing fiction or nonfiction or poetry or screenwriting? They all differ in terms of identity, but the one thing that you always have to remember if you want to be a writer and hope to be a writer is not to put shackles upon yourself as someone who creates, but to do the opposite and to push yourself to challenge. And sometimes, like John Valiant said in our conversation today on stage with Rita Dove and Jorge Volpe, we all agreed. It's the idea that you have to push yourself and explore, and don't necessarily, as John said, write about what you know, write about what you don't know. But then, as Rita Dove added in, and don't just think you can be a cultural tourist and drop into a subject matter and write something brilliant about it, then leave. That's not going to work either. You have to immerse yourself in what you write about. As far as I'm concerned, though, you write what your heart tells you, and you write what the muse or the muses demand. You trust those voices that come to you, and you pursue that. And I'm very concerned that there's this kind of new view. It's not a new view, though. This view that only write about what you know and where you come from, and that's stifling as a fiction writer. And I think it's not going to lead to. Well, it's going to hinder a lot of people. I have former graduate students saying, "I want to write this novel, but the character isn't from my culture, the character isn't from my gender, or the character." And it's like, well, good. Then you've got to write it, but they're scared to, and you should never. There's a certain amount of fear in the act of writing fiction, but you have to look that square and do your due diligence and write what the heart demands. I'm sure for some writers. For me, no, I'm not. I write anything but thinly disguised nonfiction in my fiction. I don't see myself in my novels too much. Maybe there's glimpses in characters, but certainly it is never a thinly disguised kind of nonfiction that I'm writing. I frankly don't think I'm interesting enough to write a novel about myself. But I think it differs for writers. Maybe one day when I'm an old man and it's time to write my memoir or a novel, my memoir in novel form, maybe, but not right now. I think that the world. I'm like a radio in a way. I get to hear certain stories and voices, not sure where they're coming from, and I get to play them out to an audience. And I don't see much of me in them, but I've never really had much concern about that as a writer. I don't come from my perspective wanting to teach a writer, and this is not what Jorge is saying, I'm sure, but I don't come at the act of writing fiction as I have a lesson for you to learn, and I'm going to couch my lesson in characters. I've got characters come to me, and they're going to tell me a story, and hopefully it'll be a story that the reader will want to read. So, yeah. I actually do. I write in New Orleans much of the year, so.
As an American?
Oh, as an American, yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it's a very different world experience. Canadian experience is so different from the American experience, even though it's very difficult to define what is the difference between an American and Canadian. It sounds like a punchline to a joke, but it's a very different worldview. We all grew up in our very specific families, and I wouldn't be the writer I am without having grown up in the family and in the physical environment that I did grow up, and I think that's huge for a writer, or many writers. I think that, the identity crisis in the U.S., I don't think it's an identity crisis so much as it is very entrenched ways of seeing the world are playing out. I truly believe that, it's pointing to fact that America will no longer be a majority white country in the next 20 years. And I think white people, some inherently know this and are frightened by that fact that they will not be the majority. I think that's playing out. Well, at the same time, a lot of minorities are finally getting a voice, whether that is in social media and Twitter, or if it is on Facebook or Instagram, or in the art world. A real voice. The Me Too movement is massive, and there is a reckoning happening in America, and I think it's going to play out in all kinds of ways for the next number of years. And I believe that the people who are now the minorities, including women, are going to be not too long, and thankfully and finally having more control, having a control or a say or a chance at power that many minorities and often women have not had in the past. And I think this is the beginning of very turbulent times socially, but it's not necessarily bad. But like Rita Dove said today, beware the mob mentality. Beware the Robespierre begins the revolution, and next thing he knows, he is on the gallows. Beware that. And I think that's really important. I think what Rita said today, and John and Jorge in this kind of amazing panel I had the pleasure of sitting on was really, it verified for me a number of things that I think about, and yeah, I'm excited for what's coming, and I think it's going to be, like I said, some turbulent times, and people have to remember, avoid the mob mentality.
Thank you, Joseph.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Enjoy the rest of your time.
Yeah, I wish I had longer.